Hi everyone, thank you for joining us for week 2 on all things Barndominiums, your answers to all the questions that you have. Today I have Eric Zanotelli. Can you tell him a little bit about the mortgage agency that you're with?
Yeah, I'm with Sente Mortgage. I've been in the mortgage business for 26 years here in Payne County. Been helping people all over the state buy houses, refinance houses, and basically get into home ownership.
Awesome. We are going to discuss the Barndominiums. I have a lot of you ask questions about how do you start the process? What does that look like? Where do we start at?
Yeah, and so really where it starts, if a person doesn't own land, doesn't have any land of their own, they're going to need about 20% of the total project in money to put the thing together. By that I mean if you're going to buy land that costs you $40,000 and you want to build a $110,000 barndominium, your project's $150,000. The loan for the construction is always going to be a bank loan. Bank loans are short-term lending. Banks are the ones who are going to give you the money for the financing to get it built on your land or on the land that you buy. And banks require a 20% down payment. If you happen to own some land or can get some land deeded to you from a family member, that land can take the place of your 20%. And so really where a person needs to get started is if they decide this is the kind of house they want to do, then they got to figure out, can I get land put together or am I going to need to buy land? If I need to buy land, then I have to come up with 20% of my own money to get started.
Is it always 20%?
Sometimes more, but mostly a minimum of 25%. But the cool thing with banks is banks are okay. Where your money comes from for that can be a gift, can come from family, as long as you have the money. So there are ways to work this out, especially if you have family members who might be willing to help you or family members who can deed you property and you use your property for your 20%.
Okay, so a quick overview on that would be if you can get land or if you have land, you can use that as your down payment to get started.
Absolutely.
So after they have land or they have land already and they're wanting to use that as their down payment, what would be their next step if they're wanting to build a barndominium?
Their next step would be to get some information of who builds barndominiums to see what they want to build. Do I want a 3-bedroom? Do I want a 2-bedroom? Do I want a 4-bedroom? What do I want to build so that you can come up with a price for building it. And then the next step would be to meet with a banker. And it's normally going to be a banker. I have a couple that I refer, but it's not going to be a mortgage company like Sente because the first loan is a construction loan and construction loans are short-term lending. They're normally either 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, sometimes as long as 13 months. In order to give you the time to get the barndominium set up on your land, which then becomes something that we're going to talk about in a little while about getting a long-term loan on.
Okay. However, when they don't have to find another bank first to do a construction loan. They could just contact you directly and you could you set that up for them or do they need to find that person first?
No, actually I have 2 different banks and after talking to somebody I could let them know they would qualify and then I can connect them to the bank and help make the appointment for them and get them in front of the banker.
Yeah, it makes it great because you'll be like a one-stop shop.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so you have the land, you find out what type of home you're going to build, how many bedrooms that you need. Now I have heard of people saying that you need to have your design and the building cost, but it almost seems backwards to me because a lot of people want to know what budget do they have because when they take it to a designer to have their plans drawn up, they only get so many shots at it and then it becomes more expensive.
Okay, so you bring up a good point. One of the things that I can do for you or a good lender can do for you is let you know what you would qualify for, or you might say, look, we don't want a payment over $1,500 a month, and then we could work backwards into for $1,500 a month, this is how much of a project total you could have for your financing at the end of the project. And so, yeah, so you'd want to figure your budget out first, then to your point, figure out, do I want to get a little fancy? Do I want to do some finish part of the shop side of it or whatever I want to do, whatever finish you want to do.
And that's another really good question. I'm glad you said the shop part of it. So are barndominiums and shop houses, do they each belong in their own category? Are they one and the same? From a living perspective, how do you?
So that's a great question. So the barndominiums we've done financing on, some of them are just homes, some of them are part home, part shop, and we haven't had a problem with it either way. There's not really a big distinction. The big thing, and this is something you might be wanting to ask me in a minute, is that make the barndominium part where you're going to live look like a house from the outside. Have a porch, have some bedroom windows. early on, and this used to be very difficult to get done and very difficult to get financed. It's not anymore, but early on people would build them and not put very many windows in them. So from the inside, it didn't look like they'd be finished beautifully, but they didn't have much windows, and normal houses have windows. So I just tell people on the part of it or the whole thing, depending on what you're doing, whether it's part shop, part house, or all house, have some characteristics of a home built into your barndominium.
Now, I have heard before that on barndominiums, if it was a shop house, the living quarters needs to be larger than the shop.
I haven't heard that. You might be right. I haven't heard that. And
Maybe I said that wrong. Maybe it was like on the appraisal end of it, that like so much percentage of it needed to come from the living portion of it.
it could be. But basically, my experience is the appraiser just takes that house piece and figures the house piece out from there.
Okay.
And so, because we've done a couple where it has a pretty large shop attached to it, but they're not valuing very much to the shop. The value is in the house, and then they find homes to compare it to. In the old days, they used to have to find barndominiums to compare it to. Now underwriters are allowing them to actually compare it to regular houses.
Okay, and that's a really good point, because I've had other lenders say that even in the appraisal portion of it, you have to have at least one barndominium or one metal home included in the appraisal report. Is that, have you ran into that?
We've had it where the appraiser goes out of their way and finds one, but we've also had a couple times where there were no barndominium comps and we got the deal done without a problem because the way the house was finished.
And this is why it's so important to look at different lending institutions. Just because you hear a no where you're at doesn't mean that it's a no across the board at every institution.
Correct, absolutely.
This is why it's really good and really important to shop around. Now, are barndominiums considered a traditional home or traditional build, or is it something different?
Well, they're not considered they're actually considered a stick-built house. They're built from the ground up. They're not anything like a manufactured home. They're not anything like a modular home. They're built on site, and now in today's market, they're just considered a house. They very much compare and they finance very easily compared to 9 years ago, it was almost impossible to get a loan on one of these.
I know, and now it's not.
Because there's so many of them. Yeah.
People are doing them everywhere.
Right.
All right. Well, those are the questions that I had this week, and these are the answers. Come straight from the source. It's so much better hearing from a lender himself versus just from me. So if you have any more questions about barndominiums, please let me know. And I'm going to ask you to subscribe to my channel so you'll get notifications whenever we have a new one coming up. And we'll be sure to answer those questions. Next week, I'm going to be speaking to a insurance agent for an insurance agency, so she can answer your questions about how they insure, what are the requirements and restrictions, what does that look like.
Cool. All right. Well, Sheena, thank you so much for allowing me to be a part of this. And if I can help anybody in any way, let me know.
Thank you, guys. Bye.